Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant, and I'm back with some more vibes for all you. And we're continuing the Hannibal series of Ting. That's what we're doing. This one is called Battle of Ticinus, 2018 BC. Hannibal Part 3, the Second Punic War. Yeah. You know what I mean? My man is doing some really cool maneuvering and stuff like that. In the last one, we saw him going across the Alps. I think he left with 46,000 troops and ended up with like 26,000 by the end of it. And in lieu of a couple of attacks by tribal men, by tribal people, and winter coming early, didn't really demolish, but lessen his troops that he had when he get to the valley, and he told his people, hey, look over there, and you see Rome, you'll have it in the palm of your hand soon. You know what I mean? So we getting into here now. Let's see what the Second Punic War is all about. Let's YouTube and simmer.
In late 218 BC, Hannibal marched his forces over the Alps. But before he can confront the Romans, he first tackles his three immediate priorities. He resupplies and rests his exhausted men, begins rebuilding his army by recruiting new contingents of Gallic troops from the Po Valley, as his current army is only barely equal in size to a single Roman consular army. And as soon as his troops are rested, he quickly moves to secure the loyalty of Gallic tribes. Aware that loyalty, or at least compliance, cannot be guaranteed by flattery and gifts alone, Hannibal asserts his authority by making an example of the Torini tribe, who resisted the Carthaginian advance. After a 3-day siege, he orders his troops to storm the main town of the Torini. All of the inhabitants, men, women and children, are massacred.
Wow.
This calculated display of ruthlessness serves to show the Gallic tribes what is the price of hostility to the Carthaginian cause.
Craziness.
Meanwhile, on the waves off the coast of Sicily, the Carthaginians strike the first blow. In preparation for a
full-scale invasion to take back
the important port cities that they once held, their ships begin raiding strategic islands around Sicily. In the west, the operation is successful. But further east, while raiding the Balkan Islands, a few Carthaginian ships are blown off course in a terrible storm. Not far from the Straits of Messina, they are eventually spotted and attacked by the Syracusan navy. The Roman ally captures 3 Carthaginian ships and their crews. Under torture, the seamen reveal details about the Carthaginian plan to attack Sicily. The Syracusan king informs his allies of this, and the Roman praetor in Sicily reacts promptly. The Romans learn that the Carthaginians have a larger fleet in the area, but that their ships are not packed with many soldiers. The Roman praetor decides to exploit this by packing each of his ships with twice as many legionnaires, effectively enabling each Roman ship crew to fight off 2 Carthaginian ships. With lookout posts set up along the shore, the Roman ambush is set. The Carthaginians close in unopposed, but as they approach their intended target, the Romans go on the offensive. They direct their ships.
The Romans doing some strategic vibes here too.
Rushing to board the enemy. In this 1v1 situation, the more numerous Roman crews overwhelm the Carthaginian ships and quickly pick them off one by one. Eventually, the Carthaginian naval attack is defeated, and their attempt to gain a foothold on the island of Sicily in 218 BC fails. By this time, Consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus arrives and launches a counter-offensive along the south coast of Sicily, and manages to capture Malta. He then turns back to intercept Carthaginian ships that are raiding the Balkan Islands, Vibo and Brutium. but Longus's mission is cut short by news that Hannibal arrived in the Po Valley, and he gets summoned to bring his legions back north to help Scipio. Meanwhile, Scipio is eager to meet Hannibal in battle. With his 17...
I mean, can you imagine in those times there, generals are eager to meet generals in battle, you know what I mean? To see who is the better man. And you don't hear that sort of stuff in wars anymore per se, unless probably if you're in the military and the generals are talking about, they have this general there and his strategy is this and his strategy is that. And they sit down and talk about how he is, and give him his props per se, But it seems like these guys, man, they like real warrior type people, they eager to meet each other in battle. Unfortunately, it's at the expense of human life, but it's, I wonder if the soldiers themselves are eager to fight the greatest legions of the other team and stuff like that, you know what I mean? You don't kind of have that feeling too much today. Even though, there's political undertones and backstage wrangling going on here, politics seems to take the forefront in these modern times as to how, you know what I mean? Because it seems like politicians these days concentrate more on indoctrinating the people against the other people. But I guess that would make sense because then the army is going to come from the people. When they want more people, they pull them out from the people. And if you have them believing that other side is the evil side, which is generally what they do. But you know what I mean? It seems like it's more centered around that, you know what I mean? Because every ordinary person here is like, nuke them, bomb them, drone them, you know what I mean? Just like ordinary people talking like that. Whereas I do believe they talk like that there. But back then, they didn't have that much communication. People that don't know what happened in battles until long after the battles happen. You know what I mean? Boy, could you imagine the rumor and conjunction stuff that lasts way longer than it would last now because of modern technology? That's got to be scary, just like not knowing at all. Nowadays you know pretty much what's going on because you have reporters embedded there and they have the cameras in there and they're sending back film and all that technology. So whatever happened in the morning, by the afternoon, it's probably on the 6 o'clock news.
18-year-old son at his side, also named Publius, who will later become known as Scipio Africanus, Scipio crosses the river Po at Placentia and promptly continues west along the northern bank of the Po. Under his command are mostly less experienced troops, but Scipio is confident of defeating Hannibal. After all, in Scipio's view, he challenged Hannibal on the road, and the Carthaginian general ran away. Hannibal, on the other hand, is quite surprised to learn that Scipio made it back to the Po Valley so quickly. He thinks that Scipio returned with his entire army, but he has no way of knowing that in fact Scipio's troops continued on to Iberia. Thinking that the Romans now have 2 whole armies in the Po Valley, the Carthaginian general fears that this force is now strong enough to deter Gallic tribes from joining him, and he wants a victory, fast. Hannibal knows that the Gallic tribes will not rally to his banner if he doesn't seem confident of defeating Rome. Not wasting any time, he marches his army downstream along the northern bank of the Po River to meet Scipio. Still unaware of each other's exact whereabouts, the 2 generals send scouting parties well ahead of their respective armies as they march towards each other. Each army's scouts soon report the enemy's presence, and both Hannibal and Scipio proceed with caution. The Romans build a pontoon bridge over the Ticinus River and set up camp on the western bank. Meanwhile, some 15 kilometers west, the Carthaginian column also stops and encamps for the night on the flat plain.
Not knowing.
A day later, both Hannibal and Scipio ride out in force to scout the area in person, each of them eager to gain a crucial early victory, which would inspire the rest of their troops and win the support of the Gallic tribes. Hannibal rides with the bulk of his horsemen, while Scipio has all of his cavalry and a small force of velites with him. As the two contingents move through the flat plain, they soon spot each other because of the clouds of dust thrown up by the hooves of their horses. Both generals decide to deploy their troops for battle. Hannibal arrays his close-order Spanish cavalry in the front and forms the Numidian light cavalry in two groups behind the first line. Scipio places his velites in the front, aiming to soften up Hannibal's cavalry with javelin throws. Gallic allies form the second line, while the Roman cavalry is in reserve. As both contingents begin closing the distance,
I wonder if they're singing, yelling, screaming. I wonder what they're doing.
Makes a split-second decision not to engage in skirmishing with the Roman velites. Instead, he orders a full-blooded charge against the Roman front line. Scipio quickly responds by leading his cavalry forward, as the velites withdraw through the gaps to form a second line without even managing a single javelin volley due to the onrushing Carthaginians. A few moments later, the cavalry clashes in the centre. A fierce, bloody static melee develops, unlike the usual mobile cavalry encounters of the time. The horses panic in the chaotic close-quarters fighting, and many horsemen dismount in order to fight more effectively on foot. For a while, the fighting seems indecisive, but this was another ruse by Hannibal. He waits until most of the Roman cavalry is fully committed, and then sends his Numidians on a
Oh, he's flanking them again.
This catches the Romans totally by surprise. The velites on the flanks spot the envelopment, and some of them panic and flee. The fast Numidian cavalry quickly flows around the Roman flanks and tramples over the scattered light infantry. And then the noose begins to tighten around the Roman contingent.
Wow, here we go again, man.
In the melee, Scipio is struck down from his horse. Carthaginian troops close in to finish off the wounded general, but at the final moment, he is rescued. One early account of his rescue holds that a Ligurian slave saved the Roman consul, but the more popular version claims that his 17-year-old son Publius charged to rescue his father with a small group of Roman cavalry that clustered around the consul before retreating back towards the Roman camp. As word of Hannibal's victory spreads, Gallic tribes sent emissaries to pledge their support. But despite their promises, the Gauls deliver little in the way of reinforcements and supplies during this early stage of the war. This forces Hannibal, whose army goes critically low on food in late 218 BC, to send a cavalry contingent to capture a Roman grain depot at Clastidium, guarded by a Roman garrison. Luckily for Hannibal, the garrison commander is from Brundisium in southern Italy, and when confronted, he willingly surrenders the depot and, in return for 400 gold pieces, joins the Carthaginian ranks, together with the entire garrison. These troops become the first of the Italian allies to defect and join Hannibal. Meanwhile, the Roman army retreats to Placentia, where they plan to wait for Sempronius and his consular army. Although the defeat at the Ticinus River is far from a major loss, it nevertheless reinforces the apprehension with
Ticinus,
which the
not
Romans would view
Ticinus,
Hannibal
Ticinus.
from now on, and it sets a psychological tone which would be felt in the much larger battles to come.
Man, oh man. Heavily wounded and with his morale shattered, Plebeius Cornelius Scipio retreated to the Roman colony of Placentia. Hannibal arrived a few days later, taunting the Romans and challenging them to a battle, but Scipio refused and withdrew further under the cover of darkness. My man's retreating like crazy because Hannibal is on the move. Yeah, I'm enjoying this history. I like some history and thing, you know what I mean? But hope you guys are enjoying watching this with me, man. Hope you guys are enjoying it with me. Listen, man, y'all take care of each other, alright? Cool runnings.